We are live in Rochester, New York. Two people are already online. That's a first, I think. That is terrific. We're just going to wait till the actual 7:30 to just make sure that anybody who wanted to be on is on. And we have a whole list of things today. Thank you all who sent in questions. It was pretty good. And we just came back from our Thanksgiving with our family. And Sherry thought I should share a little bit what our Thanksgiving looked like. You know, the first couple of years, especially with our family, we had turkey because some people had it, some people didn't. In the last few years, we ourselves, when we've prepared Thanksgiving, we don't make turkey at all, and people there have to survive. But the thing is, like we say, Thanksgiving's all about the sides anyways. That's what a lot of people look for. So what we had for our Thanksgiving, we had some roasted veggies, you know, just roasted in a tray. We had mashed potatoes with mushroom gravy. I love making the mushroom gravy. And we were staying with family, and they bought us a little, it's called, the company is Field Roast Grains, and they make a meat-like substance out of grains and rice and things, and they call it a celebration loaf. And it was actually pretty good. All you have to do is heat it up, and you slice it and serve it. We had that with more mushroom gravy. We had my homemade cranberry sauce, which is delicious, and apple pie for dessert. And Sherry and I were talking today. We don't have pie. I mean, I love pie. I'm a baker by previous profession, and pies were something I grew up with. And I really haven't given those up. But we don't have them all the time. We have them once a year, and that's on Thanksgiving. I make a couple different pies, and you can make them plant-based. I mean, shortening is plant-based. Crisco is plant-based. It's not the healthiest thing. That's our like one cheat, you know. So in the crust, there's shortening. The topping, which I used to make a crumb topping with shortening and all this other stuff, I now make it simply by taking equal portions, walnuts, pecans, oats, maybe a little cinnamon in there, and process that in a food processor or a blender until it's all the same consistency. And I sprinkle that on top. It's delicious. Sometimes you can add a little maple syrup or something to help it hold together. It's just delicious, and you don't notice the difference. So Thanksgiving is all about family anyways. It's not, I mean, even though food is a main part, you can survive real well eating plant-based for the holidays.
And we made a turkey made out of fruit.
And Sherry made a turkey out of fruit. If you Google fruit turkey, you'll probably see that somewhere on the internet. And that's where Sherry got the idea. And she made a whole fruit tray that looked like a turkey. I wanted to cover a few things because this is our last one for this challenge. And just things that people have mentioned, and I know I sent a newsletter which talked about where do you go from here. But today Sherry shared something on the Facebook page by David Nadeau Jr. And she says, copy it, put it up on the fridge because it's good reminders. And I'm not going to go through each one, but I'm just going to hit some key points that I think are important. If you decide to continue eating this way, a lot of times when you go out, instead of saying, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, just say, I do not eat meat, or I do not eat dairy and cheese. And even when you talk to other people, it shouldn't be, I can't. It's you choose not to. It's in your power.
Not my food.
It's not your food. You know, just like somebody who has gluten intolerance or gluten sensitivity, they don't eat gluten. Just like somebody who's allergic to milk doesn't have milk. It's not their food. The other thing is the longer you stay with this kind of diet, the easier it gets. The more recipes you come up with, the more way you know how to do it. We were traveling in an airport, and airports in the past have notoriously been poor for us to find things on the go. But we consider it almost a challenge now. What can we get at the airport? And we find things all the time. We know Starbucks at most airports have bananas, and we can grab bananas. A lot of them have oatmeal packets somewhere. And almond milk we have been able to find in every airport we've been in. So you can be pretty creative. I'm reading this thing. When people find out you're on a plant-based diet, all of a sudden they become experts in nutrition and try to tell you how you should eat. You can't avoid this. You need this. A lot of times, forget what others say. Do your own research. So you know the science and research behind it. And we've tried to give you some of those things. Nutritionfacts.org, the videos we always share, they're excellent. That's where we go to have people ask questions. Anytime we can't answer them, we send them to nutritionfacts.org. There's probably a video that'll help explain it better than we ever could. But the other thing is a lot of naysayers will do this because you're sort of an affront. You're sort of something to them that you're an anomaly. You are someone that is eating differently, and that's causing them to reflect on their own eating, which they may feel a little guilty about. So be gentle with those people. Maybe try to avoid it. One easy way Sherry and I say, well, my doctor says I'm doing great. He tells me keep going this way. That way it's not even your hands. It's not in your friend's hand. My doctor says it's okay. And that sort of takes the wind out of most people's sails. A lot of times when people, and Sherry and I were this way, when we started feeling real good about eating this way, and started losing weight and started changing and having all this energy, we wanted to share it with the world. We wanted to share it with everybody. Well, a lot of people don't want to hear it. And you get people almost offended. It's sort of like the person who's very religious and goes knocking door to door and interrupts you when you don't want to. People don't like to have things thrown in their face. So the best thing to do is lead by example. And if people ask, and that's where we've gone, if people ask, gee, how did you make these changes? How did you lose all that weight? How did you get healthy? Then we share. Or if somebody says, I hear you did this, can it help me? Then we'll share. We don't push it on anyone. Let's see. Okay. If you couple your plant-based eating with some exercise, and it doesn't have to be a lot of exercise, but just more exercise is going to help you with everything. It's going to help you with weight loss. It's going to help you with healing yourself. It's going to give you even more energy. And it's just a win-win in both cases. And one of the last things from this sheet, because there's 15 of them, I've just sort of picked 4 or 5 of them. You're brave, wise, and strong for switching to a whole food plant-based diet. Give yourself a lot of credit. You deserve it. You've done the heavy work. And it's never over. I mean, and it's never like, oh, I fell off the wagon or whatever. It's a journey. So, maybe some of you didn't stick with it during the holidays. You went back to your old eating ways, and I'm sure a lot of people did. But you may not have felt as good. It doesn't mean that you're done. You can still start again. You're only one meal away from a healthier you. So don't think of it as, don't beat yourself up, I want to say, if you make bad choices one time. In fact, when both of us, I think, along this journey of ours, every once in a while I say, I really have a craving for this, and I had a donut or something. And it's like, then you feel so afterwards, and you say, why did I ever think of that? Because our habits are so ingrained, you think it's good. I remember as a kid, there were these treats. Sherry talks about Drake's.
Yeah, Drake's cakes, like yodels.
Drake's
and
cakes, ring dings, yodels, and stuff. For me, my mother was from Pennsylvania, and they had tasty cakes. And there were these butterscotch crimpets. It was a little white cake with butterscotch icing on the top. I loved them. Loved them. But my tastes have changed now. I had one a few years ago, and it tasted like tasteless nothing. It just a lot of sugar and fluff, and it wasn't anything. And it's like, why did I even bother? So your tastes change over time. Now I see are there some questions here?
One question about I answered, but you may want to go into a little bit more about vitamin B12 and D3.
Vitamin B12 and vitamin D. I'm looking to see what she said. Yeah, the vitamin B12 is stored in the body for, I think you had 3 years, the 3-year supply that you have. Now here's the thing though. If you get low in B12, it can cause a lot of health problems, a lot of neurological problems, and some other problems. The other thing is as you get older, 50 and above, your body just naturally doesn't absorb vitamin B12 the same way. So you definitely have to take it. It doesn't matter if you're plant-based or not. Everybody needs to take vitamin B12 as they age because their body doesn't absorb it the same way. Plus, vitamin B12 are these little microorganisms that live in the soil, and when a cow or an animal eats it, they ingest those little microorganisms. It goes into their body, and then somebody who eats the meat gets vitamin B12 through the animal that way from eating meat. Well, that used to be true, and probably some pasture-raised may still have that. But a lot of our cows and other animals are fed on feedlots. And those feedlots are sanitized. They don't have the same microorganisms that they used to be. With chemical agriculture, it's killing a lot of the microorganisms in the soil. So the B12 is much reduced in the animals compared to what it was years and years ago before chemical agriculture. So actually everybody could benefit from taking some B12.
And it's cheap. And
it's dirt cheap. And you only have to really take it once a week. So it's a nice precaution. Vitamin D3, it's the sunshine vitamin, but especially living up here in the Northeast, it's hard to get that sometimes. And Sherry and I spend a lot of times outdoors, especially during the summer. We're working in a garden, going on a hike or whatever. And I had my vitamin D levels checked in July, and I thought, oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. My doctor said, you're borderline low. So here I thought I was doing everything I should, and I wasn't getting enough vitamin D. So especially up here in the Northeast, a lot of doctors recommend you take some.
Do not overdose.
But you can overdose on it. It's one of those vitamins that are fat-soluble vitamins, right? I'm pretty sure.
So you want to have your levels checked, and they say around 2,000 a day should be okay. Either way, but you should have your levels checked to see if your doctor wants you to have more.
We had somebody talk to us and said, oh, she had vitamin D overdose. She was taking, thousands a day. And what happened, like over 4,000 a day. And she ended up in the hospital, vitamin D overdose. But vitamin D is very good, especially if you're a heart patient too. Most of your cardiologists or doctors would recommend that you also have vitamin D. So those are the only two things we look at and take. Some doctors will recommend some other things, but those are the main ones, and they're the important ones. And the vitamin D helps a lot of other things besides heart health, so you can benefit by it.
We're still talking about the vitamin B12, so everyone can see that.
Okay.
But you did want to talk about the difference between this.
We had a question come in, which I thought this was great. Do you know what liquid aminos are? What is it made from? What does it do for your body? What does it do for the dish you use them in? And this person found it in a vegetable stir-fry recipe. Great question, because a lot of people don't know what they are. And so here's Bragg's liquid aminos. And Bragg's liquid aminos is a popular one that's out there. It's everywhere. And it's made from soy protein. So it's made a lot like soy sauce. And basically, the difference between soy sauce and Bragg's liquid aminos, from what I've read, is this gets fermented. And some people don't like the fermented aspect for other health reasons, which I think is probably not well research based, because fermented things are basically our friends. So things like tofu, tempeh, sauerkraut, actual pickles that aren't vinegar pickles, but ones that are fermented in a brine, those all have a vitamin K2 in it, which is hard for us to come by any other way than by fermentation products. So my saying is this is probably just as good. But some people say that this is better because of there's no alcohol in the fermentation. Well, there's not really alcohol in here. You're not going to get drunk by drinking this. And then, so there's Bragg's, there's soy sauce, which they basically do the same thing in the dish. They're very comparable in flavor. They add flavor to a dish.
There's salt.
But as Sherry, you might hear her, she chimes in, it has salt in it. And if you look in the back, it says sodium on the label. And this is the interesting thing. This says on the back that for half a teaspoon, serving size, half a teaspoon, it has 160 milligrams of sodium. Pretty good, right? Only 160 milligrams. And I think it's like supposed to have 2,000 a day. That's sort of the maximum. And then I looked at the back of my soy sauce, and it says 575 milligrams. Oh my gosh, that's just so much more than this. But then you have to read the label a little closer. This is for 1 tablespoon. This was for half a teaspoon. So 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So for 6 half teaspoons, I did the math, and the math for Bragg's for 1 tablespoon is 960 milligrams. 960 milligrams for 1 tablespoon. So which is better? Ding, ding, ding. The low sodium Kikkoman soy sauce. And it gives the same kind of flavor. But we happen to have bought into new things at the store. And one day when we were at Trader Joe's, I found coconut aminos. And these coconut aminos, we thought, okay, let's take a look. And this is made from coconut sap. That's how coconut aminos are. And this says for 1 tablespoon, 300 milligrams. So which is better? This or soy sauce? Coconut aminos, if you're watching your sodium, is the way to go. This is real low. Now the other thing when so you could use this in a stir fry sauce, you could use the other aminos, you could use soy sauce in stir fry. A lot of times we also use tamari. Now tamari is a little sweeter, but that's also pretty high in sodium. But think of it also, if you're making a dish for 4 people, like a stir fry, you can split that sodium 4 ways in there. So it's not like you're getting in that 1 tablespoon, 960 or 575 or 300 milligrams of sodium. But if you're watching your sodium, and if you have high blood pressure, you should be watching your sodium. You want to go for the lowest there. And just because a recipe says to use, say, a 1/4 cup of soy sauce, you can use less. And eating this way, as you reduce salt intake, your palate becomes more and more sensitive to salt intake, and you won't like things as salty as you used to. I mean, now when we go have a potato chip from processed potato chip, if we were to have them somewhere, it would just taste like it's a mouthful of salt. So hypertension does not exist in Kenya. Blood is not thick and gooey. Well, you know, there's a lot of things that deal with that, and part of it is their diet. You know, plant-based eating or eating predominantly whole food plant-based is naturally thinning to the blood. Naturally thinning. So people who eat this way typically don't have high blood pressure or hypertension. They're also more athletic if they're out doing things all the time. So those two things go hand in hand, but it's really the diet. My blood pressure is always well, except when I'm stressed and it has a tendency to go up. But I've never been diagnosed with that. Sherry hasn't. So it really is diet dependent. That'll change very readily.
And your resting heart rate.
And my resting heart rate. Actually, that's a very good thing. Resting heart rate, they say for like Olympic athletes or professional athletes,
40, 50?
40 to 50, something like that. That's their resting heart rate, which means if you're sitting, if you're just resting, that's what your heart rate is, and the lower the better. Both Sherry's and mine are typically under 50. Or sometimes I'm around 55.
And we're not super athletes.
I'm a little older. And yeah, she says we're not super athletes, but it's just our heart doesn't have to work as hard to pump the blood because it's thinner. It's our blood pressure is down. And sometimes when we sleep, if I'm wearing my little watch, it'll say I was down in the low 40s sleeping, which is great. The higher the resting heart rate, the more problems you're probably prone to and are going to have. So that's pretty cool.
And that's it for questions. Does anybody have any other questions?
Oh, well, let me see. Oh, but then there was one other question. Same person. They say to drain a package of, it was for tofu, and they say to put it between 2 plates and press it down, put a weight on top, a book, a heavy bottle or something, and let the water run out. I mean, if you do that, I don't do it much. I typically get the extra firm tofu, so it's already firm to begin with, firmer than the regular firm. And then I may drain it. I may press it a little bit just to get out any excess water. Sometimes I'll even put a paper towel just to damp up any of that. Because then we usually put it in marinade of like soy sauce or something to give it a little flavor or reduce something with the tofu. So with the extra firm tofu, you really don't have to worry about it too much. A lot of people do it because they want it more compressed, more, I don't even want to say chewier, but denser. So if you did weight it down for about 20 minutes, you're going to get out any excess liquid. And you just pour off the liquid and you're good to go. But like I say, I typically use it straight out of the package. I may dry it off a little bit, but I use the extra firm.
No, we've lost our viewers, so.
We lost our viewer? We lost a couple. What I'm going to do at the end of this is for anybody who would like to participate in our next challenge, we're having a big challenge in upstate New York. It's called the Good Life Challenge. It's basically what you guys are doing, have done here already. There'll be daily newsletters, and we are using the book Rip Esselstyn's Engine 2 7-Day Rescue book. You can get it at the library, you can get it at bookstores, you can get it at Amazon. Oh, Sherry's bringing me over. This one here, Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Diet book. In the front is all the science, and in the back is all recipes. And they're great, easy recipes. They're nothing complicated. You don't have to be a master cook to do it.
See if it's in the library.
But check around because I'm sure you'll be able to get a copy. Sometimes you can even get used copies on Amazon. It's a great book. And the reason we use this, there's no better book out there to help people get started on a plant-based way of eating. So highly recommend this. But if you want to join, once we're done and this gets loaded up, what I'm going to do is put a link down at the bottom in the show notes or whatever they call it at the end of the video. So if you want to join, you can just click on there. It'll take you to a form that I have that will take in your email. So I have it for the next challenge, which right now we're up to 2,300 people signed up to take part in this challenge. And we expect to easily go over 3,000. It's going to start January 7th and go through the 16th. So it's always good to keep being motivated. And a lot of people find that a challenge after a challenge after a challenge helps to keep them motivated and on their path. And like Sherry and I have said, we're always available at eatplantslove at gmail.com. If you have questions, if you want to ask anything, we can try to point you in the right direction. So thank you for the challenge. I hope it was helpful for a lot of you, and looking forward to seeing some of you on The Good Life Challenge coming up. Have a great evening.